Settle down, brother. This is the Quarter Report powered by ENCA.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. And it is now 11:23 a.m. on Thursday, and the President of South Africa has still not spoken about General Mkhwanazi more than that kind of glib, brief statement or urging restraint when he was Brazil side for that BRICS summit a few days ago. But in the meantime, the Democratic Alliance filed criminal charges against Police Minister Senzo Mchunu for lying to Parliament for something that we covered extensively yesterday, which was his flip-flopping, his story change about whether or not he did or did not know Brown Mogotsi and what is the difference between a comrade and an associate. We're going to catch you up. Also, Speaker of Parliament Thoko Didiza, who's obviously of the ANC, has ordered 3 different committees to investigate General Mkhwanazi's claims. We're going to talk about that because it's really complicated, the 3 committees and what it could mean. And we also need to talk about, and we might even start with DA raging plonker and infamous blackfacer Ian Cameron, because he has made me personally incredibly angry in the last 24 hours. Going to talk about that in a second. But basically, you know the coverage that we and a lot of other news sites did yesterday about how over 40 firearms of Kat Matlala were found in the house of Mamkhize late last year because Ian Cameron, in his position as a DA MP and in the know based on his deployment in Parliament, he told us about on Monday. Well, it turns out he mixed up his Vusis. It was not Vusi Kat Matlala's guns, it was Vusi Xaba's guns. And then he gave the most, I'm sorry, I mixed it and it doesn't matter, but what really matters, no. He tried to have a retraction yesterday. I am absolutely livid about it. It is so irresponsible. And the DA on their high horse today correctly saying that a minister who's exposed for lying to Parliament should probably resign. Well, a mistake of that magnitude, you should maybe think about that too. But of course, they're not going to think about that. Okay. You can watch the full episode on ENCA.com. As you know, the link is in the description if you're watching on YouTube. Also, yes, back in Cape Town, back at Editor Eric's place, and we had a sighting of Cyril the Sqyril this morning. If you just joined the podcast recently, you may not know that Cyril The Sqyril is a regular feature on the show. He really was running past your house today. Yeah. I think he was on the way to Cape Town CBD to attend the press conference live outside the police station where the DA was filing charges against Police Minister Mchunu. Because you see, we do have budget for field reporters. And we did manage to send out Cyril the Sqyril. You may have seen a quick video on my Instagram of us wishing him well as he went. We're not going to cross live to him, but he has sent a report. So yes, the Democratic Alliance just filed a criminal charge against Police Minister, and I will remind you, a minister in the Government of National Unity government that the DA is also in, Senzo Mchunu. They had a press conference just a few minutes ago now at a police station in Cape Town where they spoke about how they were filing a criminal charge because in their view, and I think in the nation's view, again, based on what we covered yesterday, Senzo Mchunu, police minister, lied to Parliament in a committee just a couple of months ago in March when General Mkhwanazi said that Brown Mogotsi, this mysterious figure from the north of South Africa who seems to be implicated in the connecting of business people with ANC politicians, which ultimately ends up in tenders being awarded to different people. We're going to talk about Kat Matlala later because we've got some new revelations about him also. So many things happening. I didn't even remember that in the intro. But as we covered yesterday, Brown Mogotsi was apparently so unknown to Senzo Mchunu back in March that he wouldn't even be able to recognize him by face. But now, as of Senzo Mchunu's pronouncement yesterday, Brown Mogotsi is known to him, is a comrade, but not an associate. What is the difference there? It is tough to say, and we're still waiting for a further explanation on that. Now, of course, lying to Parliament is very serious. It's under oath, so it is a criminal act by most understandings of the law. And so that is the case that the DA has opened against Police Minister Senzo Mchunu this morning. It is a classic DA move, as James, who is my brother, by the way, he's actually my brother, as James said yesterday on the show, the DA has been able to try and take on the ANC through the courts in the last year. But aside from their very big moment where they thwarted the budget 1.0, which would have had a 2% VAT increase in it, aside from that, their existence in the GNU has not been able to give them the power to stop the ANC's will when the ANC disagrees with the DA. And this is another situation here where they've gone to the courts, as they would have done if they were in opposition anyway. And so as we continue to think about whether or not the DA is valuable in the GNU from their perspective, because their explicit goal of being in the GNU that they constantly say is to limit the ANC's excesses and the ANC's bad behavior in their view. This is another situation where them being in the GNU is not helping them get any accountability here, because they could have, as an opposition party, also taken Senzo Mchunu to court and filed these police charges. But they have done that to once again very clearly show where they're standing related to this case. And I have to say, it is again wild and extraordinary that a member, the second biggest partner in the governing coalition, has taken a minister to court and filed criminal charges against them. I'm not disagreeing with the DA for doing it. I'm just showing you once again the absurdity of the government of national unity in name only, that they are doing this. And just like with Nkabane last week, Minister of Higher Education, just like with Thembi Simelane pretty much this whole year long, just like that, you have to acknowledge that this is going to cause greater strain on the government of national unity, because there are going to be factions within the ANC saying, as they already are, saying, we need to kick these guys out. And the DA almost daring the ANC to kick them out. But they're doing it, and they've taken them to court. They were very, very clear about why. So that's the first big piece of breaking news, along with, well, it's probably going to be lost in the sauce a little bit now because of the DA, but equally, if not maybe more important, is that National Assembly Speaker Thoko Didiza, who's an ANC member, has decreed that 3 different committees in the government must investigate General Mkhwanazi's claims. Now, those committees all have a mix of different representatives from different parties in the government of national unity. So it's not just the ANC checking on itself, but there is going to be a mix. And the DA, in their press statement that they just made as they filed these charges, or the single charge probably, against Senzo Mchunu, they made it very clear that members of the Democratic Alliance are on those committees and are going to be a part of those investigations. Now, it is very, very, very good that Thoko Didiza has moved quickly, especially considering her president has not said anything. And yet, look, it's before 12 midday, so he may say something early this afternoon by the time that this goes live and you can watch or listen to it. But even if he does, it is absurd that we are still at this time. And the DA has had time to file a court charge before President Ramaphosa has said anything substantive or significant since his return from Brazil. But Thoko Didiza has mandated 3 different committees to look into General Mkhwanazi's claims, which is very important. We spoke about the importance of this on yesterday's show. And we spoke about the importance of the committee's findings and investigations being made available to the public, because we as South Africans obviously have a confidence crisis. We don't trust anything that the government or politicians say, and particularly not now over General Mkhwanazi's claims. And so we need to be able to see the evidence and how that evidence was scrutinized, so that we can go, okay, we largely agree with those findings. Because as I said yesterday, there's going to be a lot of fake news and misinformation and propaganda and nonsense and spin about this from all different sides. We need to be able to witness these committees, how they looked at their evidence, how they came to their findings, and what their findings are. But it is already, based on the committees that were selected, complicated, as Stephen Curtis wrote in an article in the Daily Maverick that I encourage you to go and check out. So, Stevie G, the real Stevie G, it's not Jared in this country, it's Stephen Curtis. Stevie G wrote on Wednesday that Thoko Didiza announced she'd asked 3 parliamentary committees to investigate these claims, but Stephen Curtis says that this will probably cause chaos because the parliamentary committees on police and on justice and constitutional development are 2 of them, those committees. They will hold their own investigations, and this will be done jointly between them and in the open. So we South Africans will be able to scrutinize what they look into, how they think about it, and what they find. But the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence normally has its meetings behind closed doors. It will hold closed sessions. That's because the kinds of information that the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence deals with, often the state believes that that kind of sensitive information should remain at least classified outside of the public domain. Now, that's already a problem, because how are we South Africans going to trust those findings of the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, given we have not been able to look into what they've looked into or how they've got to their conclusions? And what if the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence comes to a different finding than the ones on police and justice and constitutional development, which are going to be happening jointly and in the open? As Stephen says, Stevie G, it is now possible that the open investigation comes to one conclusion and produces one set of findings, while the closed investigation comes to a different conclusion with a different set of findings. That's going to be brutal, and that's going to be hectic. And again, the president has still not spoken, so that's all we have right now. We don't have any other suggestion of who else or what else, what other kinds of investigations are going to be put in place. At this point, that's it.
I also feel like it might be weird, because if the closed door one is dealing with sensitive information, do they have a different set of information to the open sessions?
Totally.
So it could very well be that they come to different conclusions based on different evidence, basically.
You're exactly right. So we don't know how this is going to unfold, but that is the big headline. Those are the two big headlines amidst a ton of other headlines. I'm now going to rage about Ian Cameron, because this has annoyed me so much. When you go before Parliament, you speak from a position of authority based on the way that you've been deployed and the information that you have been made given access to and the authority that you're given by Parliament, you had better be getting it right. So Senzo Mchunu has just had court proceedings taken against him, a criminal investigation. I'm not equating them as the same, but I'm showing you the seriousness of the authority that you are given to speak in Parliament. You had better be right on what you say. Ian Cameron went before Parliament earlier this week, responding to the whole situation, commenting and trying to take advantage of the moment of Senzo Mchunu facing all of these allegations involving none other than the likes of Kat Matlala and Brown Mogotsi. And he said this.
Then I want to move over to the matter of Mr. Vusi Kat Matlala. 8 weeks ago, we started questioning matters of how Mr. Matlala continuously gets accreditation from the Private Security Regulatory Authority despite his past transgressions. Now, you'd remember a few months ago, SARS conducted a raid at Miss Mkhize's home, the owner of a well-known soccer club. During that raid, a whole cache of firearms were seized. All of those firearms were registered to a security company belonging to none other than Mr. Kat Matlala. Now, after questioning Cyril about how on earth they continue to allow accreditation, the answer was that they couldn't find a transgression. Now, if it were you or I that kept firearms illegally at a property where they're not registered to be kept and that's not fit and proper for keeping those firearms, we would not only face criminal procedures, but we would obviously have our firearms seized. Well, all of the firearms were returned to the said security company, and up until now, despite the parliamentary question submitted 2 months ago, again, unfortunately, no answer.
And off of that authority that he has, a bunch of different organizations wrote about, and we indeed covered the reporting on Kat Matlala storing over 40 firearms in Mkhize's mansion yesterday on the show. And then, just as a glib by the by, and he giggled through it like it was some kind of joke and some kind of small, silly schoolboy error, yesterday, Ian Cameron said this.
No, it was quite interesting. It was Monday during a press briefing when I said that I mentioned the wrong Vusi in terms of firearms that were illegally stored at one of her properties. They were illegally stored. They were not meant to be there. I just by mistake said the wrong Vusi. So I said Vusi Matlala instead of Vusi Kaba, and that's that. The point is there were severe irregularities, transgression of both the CIRA regulations in terms of private security regulations and also the Firearm Controls Act.
He mixed up his Vusis. What the fuck do you mean? Sorry, Eric and James for the bleep. What the fuck do you mean you mixed up your Vusis? If you were doing a high school essay speech on this situation in politics and current affairs or history, and you mixed up your Vusis, you would fail. Your teacher would fail you. You are a Democratic Alliance MP in the government speaking on the biggest blow-up explosive news outside of elections since the 2021 riots, and you mixed up your Vusis. And you even said Vusi Kat Matlala. You said his whole name. There are so many bleeps in this. You said his whole name and got the whole country to believe what you said from your position of authority, fundamentally shaping the perception of this crisis. His whole name, and you mix it up with Vusi Xaba. Now, I'm not saying that it's because you blackfaced when you were younger, but sure, you're not beating the allegations, Ian Cameron, because look, I know that it may be a little harsh, maybe not, to be like, wow, you mixed up two black people. But actually, maybe it's not a little harsh. I know that they had the same name, but I'm confident that if this was Michael Smith and Michael Johnson, you wouldn't have made that mistake. I am confident that if it was Flip van Niekerk and Flip van der Merwe, you wouldn't have made such a painful, massive, huge mistake as Vusi Kat Matlala. You said the whole name, and Vusi Xaba. So I'm not here to defend Kat Matlala. There's a bunch of other credible stuff. In fact, they managed to, as we said yesterday, they raided Kgosi Mampuru prison over the weekend where he is being held, the real Kat Matlala. They confiscated his phone, and now experts are saying that cracking open his phone could lead to the investigations of a wider network of criminally interconnected people. Kat Matlala is clearly in the wrong. We spoke about Tembisa. We spoke about the Police Public Health Services contract that was cancelled, the tender. But you cannot accept that level of mistake. And that kind of glib correction, oh, I'm so sorry, just a little is absolutely outrageous and unacceptable. Truly unacceptable. And frankly, you should, if you really want us to swallow your apology, make more an apology of it, because that is such an acceptable abuse of your office and denigration of duty. And the only reason why I'm getting so visibly infuriated by this is because we are currently dealing with a crisis of the abuse of office across the country, across government, particularly by ANC people. And they should also be ashamed, and they should also be apologetic, and they should also face serious accountability and consequences. But when you, Ian Cameron, do something this egregiously unacceptable, you lose the moral high ground instantly. I will never take Ian Cameron seriously again. I don't know if I did before today, but I will never take him seriously again because the scale of this is so unacceptable and the glibness of the correction is so unacceptable. So unacceptable. It is fucking outrageous.
I was going to say, I think if this was a mistake by a different political party, I think the DA would be all on this, right?
They would
be calling for.
They would have laid a criminal charge. They would have said he meant to mislead the public. He meant to, just like Senzo Mchunu. And again, I'm not saving special fury for the Democratic Alliance that I don't give to others. I'm saving special fury for this because the high horse, the arrogant self-righteousness of people like Ian Cameron, and then making this kind of egregious error that, as Eric just said, if any other political party had made, the vitriol, the fire down from the mountain of Ian Cameron and the DA in their response, it is fucking outrageous. And again, to mix up Vusi Kat Matlala and Vusi Xaba because they've got the same name over something like illegally storing more than 40 firearms in Mamkize's mansion, it is beyond, lol, because it's the DA, it's beyond the pale. It really is beyond the pale.
It's giving, I'm sure we all remember that moment where a news publication house was trying to demask a Twitter account. It's giving that level. That's as much as I'm going to say on that. If you don't get that reference, then I'm sorry.
And it's not the recent one, by the way. It's the older one.
Yeah. I'm talking about the one that was wrong and ruined someone's life, basically.
Yeah.
It's giving a little bit of that. And that's why I find also the Twitter comments under some of these clips quite hilarious, where they were like, oh, we got to double check the spelling of this Vusi Musi because it might be a GC, it might be an XH on that surname.
Oh,
and we
for
don't.
Xaba.
Yeah, we don't. Well, okay, GC is probably not really correct there, but I mean, you know what I mean. Like, we got to check the spelling.
Oh, that's Xaba, but still.
Yeah.
Well, we can't rely on Ian Cameron to tell us the name.
Yeah.
My God.
I will also say that the I haven't really seen like an official version of it, but I've seen it like going around on social media and stuff. Is the attorney letter, right? That Mamkize has apparently sent to the DA about this mess up. And I wonder about the timeline a little bit, because I'm pretty sure the apology only happened after that. And again, like, how do you not notice your mistake?
I'm sure he did, and
then
was
we
hoping
just
to
let
get
it
away
go?
with it.
Yeah, we just add to someone's charges incorrectly.
Well, would much rather have the public believe an extra bad thing, even if it's wrong. This is why politicians with self-righteous, moral I'm better than you complexes outrage me so much. So much. Okay.